Hello and welcome to this month's Inside the Herald, a program where you get to meet some of the people who are featured inside of the magazine. We always love to hear from those who are tuning in, so please leave us a comment. Do you enjoy this program? Please consider subscribing. Adventist education is a theme for our April issue. This month, we take an in-depth look at the current crisis that Adventist education is facing. We also share stories of how Adventist education has impacted countless lives for Christ. One story in particular that you will enjoy is a conversation that we had with NASA scientist Eileen Yingst, who shared her involvement with numerous space missions, including the latest one involving the Perseverance Mars rover landing in mid-February this year. As an alum of Village Elementary and Andrews Academy, she talks about how teachers pushed her to excel by giving her foundational classes that later helped her in her science career. In a live interview, we surprised Dr. Yinks with a visit from one of her academy teachers who she mentions in the magazine.
And you probably haven't seen Mr. Baker for a long time, but we wanted to invite him as a guest today also, so that you can have a chance to see him and have a little dialogue time with him.
Mr. Baker, ich freue mich sehr zu sehen. Isn't it awesome that we have this reunion in front of like the whole world?
He's on mute. Someone will have to take him off mute.
So while they're working on getting him off of mute, Mr. Baker taught German and English classes for many years at the Academy. And we're going to try to make
He's
sure
off
we
mute.
get him off of mute.
He's good.
Okay.
They muted you, Bake.
I wonder, Eileen, I haven't seen you for so long, how you got into this area. I don't think I've had much contact with you at all since you left the academy.
No, but it's not necessarily something that you and I would have talked about what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. But I've kind of always wanted to do space science, and so here I am. But you should know that the very first education I got in writing a research paper was research composition under you.
Wow. Remember what you wrote about?
Yes, I do. It was this, I can't even remember the couple's name, but it was this divorce that occurred among these two very, very rich people. It was either in the 20s or it was the 1890s. And I remember having to scroll through all of those, all the microfiche. And of course, they were old papers. They were really hard to read. But yeah, I wrote about some dramatic divorce, and it was very, I remember reading it and going, this is a little more salacious than I expected it to be.
Wow. So where did you go after leaving Andrews Academy?
So I went to Dartmouth College and got a degree in physics and astronomy, and then went and took 2 years off, which I recommend actually. And then did my master's and PhD at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. Then I did a postdoc, and then I got involved in missions, and here I am. And I hear that you're retired, even though they trucked you out and put you in the front entryway of the academy. So, how do you like retirement?
What's that?
How do you like retirement?
Well, I don't like it as well as I like teaching.
Aw, we miss you.
So
I really enjoyed teaching.
I heard through the grapevine that Mr. Baker, when she wrote a paper, you told her, good job, but you could do better. Do you remember encouraging young people like that?
Yeah, I do, kind of. But her paper was very good, I'm sure.
Yes, yes.
You were always demanding, and that was, I think students rise to the level of expectations, and your expectations were high, and I think your students met them because of that.
So, Mr. Baker, since Andrews Academy is right in our own union, and you have taught many years here and impacted many lives. We wanted to just say thank you for the years that you gave of service as a teacher in an Adventist school.
Well,
And
thank you.
also, go ahead, you want to say something?
Oh, I just wanted to say thank you very much for those kind words. It's kind of interesting how I got into Adventist education in the first place, because I was a student at the University of Minnesota. And I wanted to get into Adventist education. I wrote a letter to Union College because I had gone there initially. And I asked if they knew of any job. And of course, they put me on the list, but I never got a call. But my wife and I happened on one, I don't know, I think it was a Sabbath or Friday. We went out to Maplewood Academy where I attended as a student. And I met Pastor Felton there, who was the Bible teacher. And he said he was going to be principal at Oak Park Academy in Iowa. And so I went. He asked me if I'd be interested in the job. And I said, well, yes, but I could get drafted. So I don't know. But if you want to hire me under those circumstances, I'll go. So that's how I got into Adventist education, because I was about ready to give up and I was exploring other possibilities. But anyway, that's how it happened. And I ended up at Andrews Academy eventually in 1976. And I taught there until 2012. And so, Eileen, did you have German from me as well?
Yeah, 2 years, my man. And just so you know, the European Geophysical Union's conference, which I go to every year, is in Austria. So it has actually come in handy.
Well, good. Very good. Glad to hear that.
So, Mr. Baker, you also had the privilege of teaching my children,
I did.
as well as many, many others. And so, again, thank you. And I also just want to take a minute to thank every Adventist teacher, especially during COVID-19. They have continued serving despite the challenges and the changes that have had to be made. But I think that the real reason that a teacher chooses to go into Adventist education is because they want to help the young people academically prepare to serve here on this earth, but also the joy and wider service in the world to come. And so once again, thank you, Mr. Baker, and thank you every Adventist teacher that has given their life to serve.
Have you enjoyed the covers of the Lake Union Herald magazine? Have you ever wondered what the inspiration is behind the design of it? Today we get to hear from Andrews University student Courtney Saunders, who illustrated the cover of this month's issue and also one of the featured stories.
Hello everyone, my name is Courtney Saunders. I am a senior studying graphic design at Andrews University. And for the April issue of the Lake Union Herald magazine, I designed the cover and also the illustration for the cover story. So I guess let's get right into how I came up with the concept for the cover. So Miss Mitchell, she came to my editorial design class via Zoom, and she kind of gave the students a task to create the cover and then the cover story for two different spreads or articles. And that was how the project was introduced to me. And so now the rest is history, and my cover and my cover story design and concept was chosen. So after that initial meeting and after reading the article and going over some of the topics that Miss Mitchell had mentioned, I wanted to make sure that the idea of K through 12 education stood out. And the way that that stood out to me was through a chalkboard, because every phase of my academic life, a chalkboard has been present. Um, so I thought that a chalkboard would be a key element to that. I also wanted to make sure that the idea of a breach was evident, because the title of the magazine um, would be called, or would ask, can Adventist education repair the breach? And so when I looked up the definition of what a breach was, I found that it's about something being broken or ruptured. And so I kind of took that quite literally and created a crack on a chalkboard. I also wanted to make sure that the chalkboard kind of looked realistic. And so I hand lettered the title, and then also added like doodles and like different notes around it, as if a teacher had been teaching a class and just wrote that. Um, and then lastly, for the cover, I remember in the initial meeting with Miss Mitchell, and for when she was introducing the idea to the class, she had said that she didn't want the cover to be overly political. So just to give a small reference to America, where the breach is, I chose red, white, and blue as like the colors for the chalk, but in a more subtle and toned down way. And I just wanted to do that just to push the idea that education within the SDA community can be the hope that fixes the breach in our country. So moving on to the cover for the main story, or the featured story. So once again, I read the article a couple of times, and from reading the article, I noticed the theme of Adventists being the light, and being a light to light up a very dark place. So I wanted to create that, and that's how this illustration came about. I wanted to create something showing how dark and scary and evil this world can be, and that it's up to Adventist education, with the help of teachers and our parents, and especially the student, to be the beacon of light that God calls us to be. So that's why I created an illustration of a schoolgirl wearing a uniform walking into this dark and scary forest. I didn't want her face to show that she was scared or how scary the forest was, so I made sure that it was glowing with this hope and positivity as she made her way and lit her way through the dark forest. And so really that's just a reference to the current generation, and then the one that's growing up, that they will be the ones to add hope and light to the world. And as they shine their light, that people will be drawn to it or attracted to it, like moths drawn to a flame. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about how I came up with the illustration style. The reason being was I wanted to draw in a larger audience that includes adults and more youth, so that when adults and kids both see this, they could be excited and interested to read what this story is and how it connects to the illustration. And I don't know if guides are still around, but those small booklets the things in church when I was younger that I was excited to read during the service. And so hopefully people around my age could relate to that and be drawn to read it, because I do think that the article is a very powerful one. So that's really what kind of came through my mind and through the brainstorming process, to kind of create the cover story and the cover of magazine. So thank you.
Lake Region Conference Ministerial Director Michael Horton says, "The stories of the evangelistic power of Adventist education must be told again, for it has had far-reaching impact on the growth and development of Adventism and in service to the world." Thank you again for joining us for this month's Inside the Herald. God bless you.